The Royal Champion charge is becoming so popular, even in hard mode, and there's no wonder why. It's just absolutely dominating basis no matter what army you pair with it. And today I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do, start to finish, every aspect of it in order to master this. So stay tuned. All right, everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to take a really in-depth look at the Royal Champion charges that are really popular right now. And I'm going to quickly define kind of the three different words that we're going to be using to talk about this throughout the video so that there's no murkiness and everybody kind of understands what we're talking about. A Royal Champion charge is going to include all of these. It's kind of the main umbrella term that is going to be talking about any type of charge with the Electro Boots. And there's two that we're going to be talking about specifically today. The Spirit Walk, which is when you're alternating invisibility spells with the invisibility of the Spirit Fox to keep the Royal Champion invisible for a long time, maybe save on some spell space and get a ton of value that way. And then the Shock Walk, which is going to be using a bunch of invisibility spells with the Phoenix on the Royal Champion with the Electro Boots in order to get a bunch of value that way. Now, the Electro Boots, whether you like me saying this or not, they are insanely strong. I don't think it's even up for discussion anymore that they're the best equipment in the game. They're super good. And because of that, they are becoming the keystone to almost every major good attack. And to be honest, before the introduction of Electro Boots, hit rates were lower than what they were at their peak at Town Hall 16. But because the Electro Boots are so good, those hit rates, I'm telling you, they're going to go right back up to where they were because they're so strong. So what I'm trying to get at with all of this is you need to learn this. This is going to be your guide to be able to 3-star consistently, easily at any Town Hall 17 attack. All right, before we dive in to a whole bunch of in-depth stuff on each and go over and show you guys in depth how to do them, I want to teach you guys when you should be using the Shock Walk versus the Spirit Walk and maybe the pros and cons between the two. Now, the Shock Walk with the Phoenix, is obviously one where you have a lot of spell space, so it's going to synergize really, really well with armies that do not need a lot of spell support. Things like the mass super barbs that you can kind of see here, they don't need a lot of spells to work, right? Because they kind of rage themselves up. Mass, dragons, or Hydra don't need a lot of spell support, so you can get away with using a ton of spells and do this with those attacks as well. Where the Spirit Walk, you're going to want to use maybe a little bit fewer spells, only like 4 invisibilities. Maybe you can get away with using a few more than that. But that's going to work better with armies that do need more spell support for obvious reasons. Things like the Super Witch attack needs a little bit more spell support. Rocket Loom Fireball needs a lot more spell support to help keep the Warden alive. And also he's got a Fireball that you need to use spells to get more value with as well, right? So armies that need spell support to pull the attack off, use the Shock or the Spirit Walk. Armies that do not need a lot of spell support, you can get away with doing the Shock Walk. Now, the equipment that you're going to be using for both. For the Shock Walk, you can get away with using the Rocket Spear. And you're going to be using the Phoenix with her, obviously, because that's what the Shock Walk is. The Rocket Spear is going to help get you a funnel right off the bat, get you some value, and make it so that you don't have to use invisibility spells immediately. And then you're just going to start using them back to back to back as soon as she gets in range of the defenses. Really, the only thing you need to look out for is not putting her in range of a Monolith or a Ground Expo right when you put her down. And then it's pretty self-explanatory from there. With the Spirit Walk, the best equipment combination with her is going to be the Haste Vial. It's going to speed up her attacks as she's getting into the base. You can activate her ability when she's on some high health defenses and then get a little bit more value that way. And keep in mind with the Spirit Walk, you're not planning on keeping her alive forever. You're just going to chunk out a good section of the base and then just kind of let her die after she's gotten some decent amount of value. And I guess that's kind of the same thing with the Shock Walk too, but more so because you're only investing 4 invisibility spells, give or take, with the Spirit Walk versus the Shock Walk, where it's going to be like 11 plus the Rocket Spear. So you're looking for massive damage with the Shock Walk, where the Spirit Walk, you're looking to chunk out key defenses and setting a good funnel. Anyway, let's go ahead and just speed through the rest of this replay. You can see this is crushed. I still have 17 Super Barbarians left. And so you can see maybe it's not the Super Barbs that make this attack so good. It's just the Electro Boots. So they're pretty crazy. But let's go ahead. We're going to talk about the Shock Walk first. All right, one thing I thought of really quickly before I get into either of those attacks is I want to talk a little bit about the placement of the invisibility spells and some tricks that you can use to maximize the amount of value that you get with the Royal Champion based on where you put your invisibility spells. And before I do that, I want to talk about the level of the electro boots that you're going to be able to use. And I think I mentioned this somewhere later on in the video too, but I'm recording this a little bit later because I forgot to include this part earlier on. So you're probably going to hear this part twice, the level anyway. You can use, they're very good starting at around level 12. The barrier to entry for the electro boots is honestly so low compared to most of the other equipment. It's pretty crazy, but they're usable at level 1. You can absolutely use this at level 1. The most important thing that you're going to get from the electro boots is the ability to clear the skeleton traps so your Royal Champion doesn't get distracted. The second most important thing is the health generation. And then the third most important thing is going to be the clearance of the trash buildings and the little bit of damage that she does to the other buildings while she's there in that area. Now let's go ahead and talk about this for a little bit. I'm going to start off with a rocket speed here. So I'm going to kind of speed through that part of this attack just really quickly. And then when we get to the... Okay, I'm going to do half speed for the rest of this because I want to show you guys that I preemptively make a lot of my buildings invisible before they go down to the Royal Champion shots because I know they're going to die to the aura anyway. Oh, I'm going to have to cough here just a second. Excuse me. Okay, so you're going to see I am going to place my invisibility spell right here next because I know that it's just going to go down to the aura either way, whether the Royal Champion's attacking it or not. And then I don't have to worry about wasting shots or time on it in order to get that scatter shot to go down. That's a little trick that you can do. And then on the low health buildings, like the sweepers or the builder huts, you really almost don't need to waste any shots on those at all. So I probably should have placed my invisibility spell right here. That was one mistake I made on my part. So they don't even need to really attack those at all. Once she attacks heavier health buildings like the monolith, maybe let 1 or 2 rounds, depending on how often you want her to hit this or the position that she's in. You know, that way she gets that there. And then once the monolith goes down, I think I do a better job here in just a second about putting the invisibility spell down. Okay, I put my next invisibility spell here because I want to keep my Royal Champion to go up in this direction and not down towards the ricochet cannon because, again, I want her to stay towards the middle of the base. And I'm going to invis the sweeper and the bomb tower because they're going to kind of go down anyway from the aura, right? It doesn't matter if my Royal Champ is there or not. And I invis the flame or fire spitter now because going to go down to that either way. And then I'm going to let my Royal Champion just get these things through her aura regardless. And then I invis the poison tower because she's going to go and deal with the scatter shot now. And the poison tower is going to die either way from the aura. Again, it's pretty insane. So you can get a lot more value with your Royal Champion by saving shots on buildings that would go down anyway and doing that. So you can see with those 11 invisibility spells and literally 0 troops, she's gotten over a quarter of the base, mostly defenses by the way, and gutted the core, and she ends up, even with the Phoenix ability on her, deals with the entire clan castle. So the ice golems go down and everything, and you're going to see that here in just a second. That's the last ice golem. All the other stuff was archers and headhunters. And so the core of the base is gone. A whole bunch of important defenses are gone. The clan castle's gone. And actually, maybe I'll do a little test and just see if I don't invis any buildings preemptively. And I will just, I'll type a number of percent that gets up here. That way I don't have to add that into the side or anything. But that's another way that you can get more value with your Royal Champion. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into the specifics of each type of Royal Champion charge now, and then we'll get to the juicy stuff. All right, so let's talk about the shock walk first, and I'm going to show this to you kind of in a quote-unquote live hit just because you can't do this like you can if you're just scouting a base. You're going to want to click the expo, one of the expos. That's going to show you where all 4 of them are located, right? At this base, it doesn't make sense to put the Royal Champion at the left or the right because the ground expos cover that really, really well. You're going to want to put your Royal Champion kind of at the bottom or the top. This is going to allow her to get really good value with the rocket spear and not get hit the whole time, and then also kind of work her way towards the middle too. So let's just go ahead and start this right. Depending on the level rocket spear you have, is going to determine how many shots she's got. So she's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now she's going to walk that way. And I'm going to invis her a little bit in advance just so that she gets there in time. 2, 3, 4. We're going to invis kind of on the side, right? 2, 3, 4. We're going to invis both those buildings so she goes to the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can invest a rage with her, but you don't have to. 4. Poison spells obviously slow her down a little bit, so you're going to be spending more time in this area, but that is not a huge deal. 3, 4. We're going to invis the monolith. Okay, it went down anyway. 4, 2, 3, 4. We're hoping that we can just gut the rest of this core. 3, 4. We actually want maybe that scatter shot. And then she's going to go to Phoenix. And that's fine. She's going to draw the entire CC and ideally kill most of it. Maybe not the ice golems. But what we're going to do is we're going to put one archer right over here just to draw the CC as soon as she goes down and the Phoenix is dead. Then we'll have something else worry about the ice golems while we send other things off into another part of the base. I'm going to go ahead and explain this in a replay and talk to you about what the goals are with the Spirit Walk, as well as what defenses and things you should look for, and maybe answer any other questions that I can think of that you might have. Now, with the Shock Walk, obviously this is going to be paired with an army that is not going to be having hardly any spell support, right? You've got one Rage if you choose not to use that with your Royal Champion, and one Freeze is going to be what's left over with this army. Now, because of that, I'm going to quickly explain any army that does not need a lot of spell support is going to be still fairly good at quickly cleaning up outside areas of the base, but they will struggle at funneling themselves to the core because of the lack of spell support and staying alive in the core. And because of that, your main priority with the Shock Walk is to get as close to the center of the base as you possibly can. You want to ideally start anywhere on the base. Let's just put right here as an example. This is just an example. I don't even know this is the best place to put her. You want her to head right to the middle and just gut the core. This is going to allow maybe the rest of your heroes to clear like the really, really tough areas, but then let the dragons or the super barbs or do other things clear the outside of the base. And I'm not actually going to attack this base, so I don't care if it's under attack right now. But that is the most important thing with your Royal Champion. With the Shock Walk, the actual specific targets that you're going to be getting along the way are much less important than the fact that she gets to the core or not. You need her to get to the middle. Super barbs will never be able to work their way into a core of a base if it's not cleared. The heroes are going to really struggle without a whole lot of spell support to get to the core if you cannot do it without the Royal Champion. So the Royal Champion has to get the core with the Shock Walk. That's going to be your goal every time. And you can do things like if she's going this way here and she decides to maybe kind of come up here, you can use an invis spell on these buildings here and direct her towards the middle of the base again. And I've even seen Fatal, he's a pro player, he plays for Find This Base. He's used 2 invisibility spells at once to make sure she goes to the middle of the base. So what he's telling me with his actions are the expenditure of 2 invisibility spells to make sure she goes to the core is much more valuable than the value she would get with 2 invisibility spells on the outside of the base, even if she didn't go to the core, if that makes sense. It's more important to get her to the middle of the base than it is to get value around the outside of the base. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't think the Shock Walk's a little bit easier because there's a lot less mechanic to it. In terms of timing and placement of the spells, because you're only having to focus on keeping one thing alive at once. So this one's probably going to be a quicker segment, but I'm telling you guys, the Shock Walk is a fantastic option for anybody wanting to try and get really, really good at consistently 3-starring bases at Town Hall 17. It pairs extremely well with armies that don't need spell support, and I know I've said that a bunch, but just make sure you get your Royal Champion to the core. That is the single most important aspect to any of these attacks that involve the Shock Walk. Now, as far as level of equipment goes, I would say level 12 is when it starts to become pretty good, but you can use it at level 1. The most important thing is that you're just doing damage to some of those trash buildings and that you're not getting distracted by the skeleton traps. So it's usable at level 1, but level 12 is where it starts to get really good because that's where the health regeneration starts to get up to a level where it's decent enough. And then keep in mind, when she dies, the Phoenix will just revive her for 9 more seconds, and she'll get a ton of value that way too. So she really deals with like basically the CC too almost every time on this, or most of it at least. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into the Spirit Walk now. All right, I'm going to show you guys how to do this Spirit Walk live. It's going to be a little bit easier to understand that way. So every time the last digit on this timer that's circled up here says 6 is when you're going to drop an invisibility spell. So at 2 minutes and 56, 46, you've probably heard me say this before, but every time it ends in a 0, so like at 2 minutes and 50, 40, 30, is when your Royal Champion's going to go invisible again from the Spirit Fox. That's important to know if you lose track of time and your place and everything. So just keep that in mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit. I apologize, but I'm still kind of getting better from being sick 100%. So at 50 seconds, she'll go invisible again. Boom, easy as that. Let's go ahead and activate her ability right now. So we speed through this, and then I'll make her invisible again. I kind of wasted that invisibility. Okay, she's going to go invisible again right now, and then at 2 minutes and 36, I'll have to use this again. Perfect. And then that's our last invisibility spell. I need to put my queen down so she starts to form a funnel and kind of start moving in the direction that I want her to. And we haven't drawn the CC yet. That's totally fine. Oh, okay, now we are. And actually, the Royal Champion's going to deal with a lot of the scary part of the CC right now anyway, just from the aura. Okay, and it doesn't matter what direction my queen's going. I really don't care that much. Let's maybe put a Valkyrie down. Maybe 2, just in case that one dies. Okay. Root Riders, Valkyries, healers. I'm going to just freeze this so that I know my queen doesn't die. We're going to try and wall break my king into that compartment there. Then we'll use one more wall break right here. And I'm going to use a couple of headhunters early on. We've got a few scary heroes right here. I'm going to freeze this little whole area right out the bat. And I'm going to use my ward ability kind of early because I don't want everything to die at this really kind of scary part of the base. We're going to use one more freeze right here. I know that I'm using all my spells kind of early on. Root Riders are definitely another army where they kind of do help a lot with the addition of spell support. So keep that in mind. And I'm hoping that we can clear enough of the stuff to where some of my heroes will head mid and deal with the town. At least somebody will deal with the town hall, hopefully. Queen, go back inside, please. Okay, let's pop a queen ability. Is she not ever going to go back inside? Okay, maybe not. Oh, there she goes. Let's rage right here. I feel like that's probably a good spot to rage. Okay, we're going to get the town hall down now. Let's pop the king ability. Hopefully we can clear some of these defenses over here. This is anytime you're doing the Spirit Walk, make sure the army that you're doing this with, and even with the Shock Walk, is time sensitive. So you may need to start the second part of the attack before the Royal Champion's like dead all the way, just so that you don't fail on time. And that's just something you're probably going to have to learn and be comfortable with throughout the raid. But you can see the Shock Walk, even if it doesn't get insane value, right? I just invested 4 spells with my Royal Champion, but it was enough, and we still end up kind of crushing the base. We had quite a few Root Riders left over, some healers, 2 heroes. So I will go ahead and just give a conclusion with everything, and I'm going to just go ahead over my notes. I've got a whole bunch of notes written down here again, and see if there's anything that I've missed that I would have questions of myself if I were watching this video, so that I can give you guys all of the information that I've kind of obtained by doing this over a period of time. All right, so just to conclude everything that we've talked about very quickly at the end, just to refresh your guys' brains, when you're doing the Shock Walk, obviously you're going to have the Phoenix. You want the Rocket Spear just to kickstart the attack and not have to waste as many invisibility spells. It will also make it a little bit easier. Your goal with that is going to be the core. Do everything you can to get your Royal Champion to the core and get as much of the core as you possibly can. Invis defenses in advance if they're starting to get low on health so that the aura can just take care of it and you're not wasting time or shots. Try and start the second parts of the raid, maybe as your Royal Champion, part of the attack is winding down a little bit and it's easier to multitask. Start placing super barbs or dragons or whatever it is to clean up some of these trash buildings as your Royal Champion moves into the base. That way you don't have to worry about them. All of these armies are going to have some sort of time issues because of the amount of time that it takes to do a Royal Champion charge. With the Spirit Walk, this is the one we're going to spend a little bit more time on. The specific buildings that you're going to want to target with the Spirit Walk are actually going to be determined by the army that you're going to be pairing with the Spirit Walk. So if you're doing Hydra, it might make more sense to try and get more air defenses or multi-archer towers, Things like that with your royal champion, right? Maybe even some air heroes, like your heroes that target air. Arrows, there you go. If you're using root riders or things like that, it might make more sense to get ground expos or ricochet cannons. So it's not as cookie cutter as the shock walk, but the spirit walk, just put your royal champion down. Make sure that you're using her to clear those down and placing your invisibility spells at the correct time that I've showed you guys. Now, the goal with both of these things is going to be, one, obviously you're going to want to get valuable defenses and things out of the way, but two, these are always going to set really, really good funnels so that you guys can start the next portion of your attack, and nothing can walk this direction, right? Because there will literally be no buildings in that direction. So it will make funneling for whatever the next part of your attack is really, really good. If you guys get really good with using the Electro Boots and the Royal Champion charges, no matter which kind you want to use, sometimes it's just preference based, it will drastically improve your hit rates. That's how good this equipment is right now. I highly recommend everybody start learning it. Friendly challenge yourself a bunch and get comfortable with it. The timing of the invis-spells, where you're going to put them to move on to the next defenses, what defenses you should prioritize depending on which attack you're going to use, and the more comfortable you get with this, the better you guys are going to be. If you guys have any questions or anything about this video, anything I've covered, let me know in the comments below. But if not, I will see you guys next time.